Thanks, Joe. I've got really tiny fonts up on the screen there. It's like 14 point. Can you guys all see that? You might have to come closer. I don't know. Anyway, we'll make this work. Super excited to be here. And I'm going to start with a confession. It was months ago that Joe called me up and asked if I'd come say a few words. And I was super excited. But I could not tell him that 2 days before, what was planned, 2 days before this event, we were going to be announcing one of the largest releases in the company's history around Windows, in particular, a couple of devices that my team was a part of. And so the confession is I'm going to weave those into this presentation. It's not going to be a sales job, not a Microsoft sales job, but I want to put the two new experiences called the Surface Hub as well as the HoloLens in the context of the topic I wrote down, which is human design, and what I would extend to this notion of more personal computing, which we think is the birth of a new ecosystem of devices and experiences. So super excited. Have to admit, a little tired because we were working end to end, getting ready for that announce. How many of you heard about that Windows announce 2 days ago, by the way? Okay, awesome. Go Windows 10. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And I can say, as Joe mentioned, here's my track record. People look at this list a couple different ways. Yes, I'm an old guy. I've been around the company for 23 years. Either I can't hold a job down, or I'm the luckiest guy at Microsoft because I've been able to work in every one of these divisions at different times. Been involved in hardware, software, as well as the branding, everything from packaging to working with PC ecosystems, et cetera. It's been a great ride. What's awesome, and why I'm a little tired but super excited to talk to you all today, is I really do think this is a moment in time in the company's history where a lot of things are going right. A lot of things are clicking, especially for designers. And our products, hopefully you're seeing them as well, I think are coming through, where they're more consistent, easier to use, well-designed, et cetera. But I do want to talk about something that we are still working on internally. As much as things seem to be going right, I think we can all put our finger, or maybe can't put our finger on some of the things that say, you know what? Is this world truly a different place? Is it a better place now that we're doing better design? And that's the start of this conversation that I'd like to share with you. If you missed it, this is a screenshot of Windows 10 for the desktop. I'm not going to do the ad thing, but you guys know you're familiar. Windows 8 tiles, immersive tiles are now accessible in your start menu. Win32, favorite applications are there. Everything's in one spot. We've heard it loud and clear. Customers don't like the shifts between environments, so we've consolidated things down to a very easy-to-use single place. We introduced something called Continuum. Software is smart enough to know if you're using a convertible, a slate, or you're using a desktop, and the software will configure itself automatically to be optimized for the input device, probability of that device itself. Just to the left, see the Windows key is also cut off there. Windows button's on the bottom left-hand corner. You're going to see Cortana is built in now into the desktop. We had it on the phone. It's maturing at an amazing clip. And so now you have one entry point for all your search needs, whether it's for documents, querying the web for new information, context, everything. Seems to be and we're getting really great response for this. We're all built on a universal app platform as part of a one core initiative that we have, which makes it easy for all of you to develop for multiple endpoints. At the end of the day, we don't like to think we're just building phones or slates or PCs. We're building mobile experiences. So our software has to be easy to port into different environments and make it much easier for all of you to help design these great experiences with us. So shifting off of the Windows core, I do have the privilege, as I mentioned to Joe, of managing the design team that was involved with two form factors that we snuck in as a secret into the Windows ecosystem. And the first one is the Surface Hub. There's a lot of things to say. Microsoft Surface Hub, which is effectively the result of our PPI investment that we made a little over 2 years ago. Think about this as a 55-inch or an 84-inch 4K display with high-resolution cameras that are capable of looking in your eyes so you can do conference calling with one touch to get to Skype, to bring people in, remote conferencing, using a whiteboard with one touch, which is OneNote. And obviously Skype's built in. It has stereoscopic speakers that can do noise cancellation, super intelligent, can sense up to 100 points of touch all at once. Think about interaction design in this context, being able to zoom with 10 fingers. It supports 2 pens at one time, so it's designed for collaboration and co-creation. It is not just a projector and a fancy monitor, but it actually is trying to change people's work. So the idea behind it, it's a communal Windows that connects people and ideas together in a very fluid way. And you're going to hear these terms throughout my talk, because I think it'll all add up to something that hopefully makes sense by the time I'm done with this. I'm going to run a video, and not for the intention of selling you on anything, but I want you to listen to the words of the video, because marketing is also listening to the way that we talk about our designs and what our intentions are for consumers. All right, let's go.
We want every meeting to be great, where things just click, where ideas flow and work gets done. The problem is, technology hasn't been designed for the way we want to work together, until now. With Microsoft Surface Hub, you can unlock the power of the group. You can walk up and share your ideas on a canvas as big as your imagination. You can touch the data you need to make key decisions on the spot. And anyone can pick up a pen to help drive the conversation. It's a platform that brings the tools you rely on to the center of the discussion and lets you interact in new ways. Whenever you need, you can bring the right person into a critical session. Meetings become more engaging and productive, and you can take your ideas with you when you leave the room. So make every meeting great. Introducing Microsoft Surface Hub. Unlock the power of the group.
Okay, that's one. One thing to note on that, well, first, inside joke. It seems like every time we're showing pens, people are circling things. I think The Verge has finally caught up to say, Microsoft knows how to circle things. Truthfully, the pen is so much richer than that. We can do so many different things. There's handwriting recognition and all these other things. Fortunately, we haven't caught up with the marketing team to make that richer and more believable. But not to be lost on this, and as you follow the developments of the Surface Hub, watch for how we've positioned it as also a meetings device and appliance. What we've done is actually, I would say, hard-coded OneNote as well as Skype, so that with one touch from an ambient screen that you could get authenticated through, or can't go that far, authenticated through, you can get directly to a whiteboard, a Skype call, or projection. Because we believe 80% of the tasks that you want to do on that device is actually one of those three things. So all the depth of Windows is going to be available, but we kind of suppressed it right behind that start button. But the idea is that we are really approaching our products differently, because this is the way that people want them to work. So it's super robust, it's lean, it's a new SKU of Windows, and it's designed for communal experiences. Too much words for the general consumer, but I think you guys rock that. This is the other thing that happened, and I'm going to spend a little more time talking about this, again, in the context of more personal computing overall. This is the world's first fully self-contained, head-worn holographic computer. It's a supercomputer on your head. It has no tethers. You're not connected to a phone, a PC. It's got a lens on it, kind of like ski goggles, so I can see all of you while I'm seeing objects and holograms in this space. Because it has front-facing cameras, I'm also able to quantify this environment so that the things I am placing on it know that that table is right there, or that he has a bag right there. So it is an experience that doesn't exist today. Again, it's not smoke and mirrors. We demoed it 2 days ago, where the press went behind the scenes and actually were able to walk on Mars. We partnered with NASA, these rocket scientists who had the data from Mars. And they are now able to, this summer, use some of the prototypes that we have to walk around rocks that are done to real specifications. So this is, without a doubt, and I don't think it's an exaggeration, something that's really going to change our world. And again, it's different from virtual reality. It's not for everybody. Virtual reality, Oculus Rift, you get totally immersed, wonderful experience. This we call mixed reality. Certainly you can see immersive experiences, but we think the power of this technology is that we're blending your physical and your digital worlds. It's a really different approach, right? Think about this being the extension of your Windows desktop. So now the world is your desktop, and you can place the things that matter most to you where you want them. Okay? That's the promise of this holographic computer. Here's the image of the shell, which my team has been working on, and we continue to work on. You can see with a very simple bloom gesture, you get to your familiar pins, which will be your holographic applications. Won't get too far into this. This is really early. Can't talk too far about the development plans, pricing, or anything like that, but you guys get a sense. You'll be able to view Windows in 3 dimensions. So, one last video, and then I'll get on to the meat of the content for today's talk.
Look around. Technology is all around us. We use it in every aspect of our lives. It enables us to do amazing things. But what if we could go further? What if we could go beyond the screen? Where your digital world is blended with your real world. Now we can. This is the world with holograms. What will they enable us to do? New ways to visualize our work.
I have an idea for the fuel tank.
New ways to share ideas with each other.
How are things going your end?
I just put the images in OneDrive.
Perfect.
More immersive ways to play. New ways to teach and learn.
So put the new trap in the place of the old one.
Now what?
And tighten here and here.
New ways to collaborate and explore the places we've never been.
Look at this formation. Let's take a closer look.
And new ways to create the things we imagine. Because when you change the way you see the world, you can change the world you see. This is Microsoft HoloLens.
You know, I can't believe this was never leaked until before the announcement. You probably know we have the worst track record of keeping secrets in the company, right? There's a team that's been working on this for 5 years, and they came from the Xbox Connect team, some of the engineers there, and some of the best researchers across company. This has been such a dark project internally that we have fingerprint ID on top of other kind of authentication and get through doors, et cetera. But I am amazed that and proud that we were able to keep it under locks. I do want to mention one thing before I move on. A little bit about this. What's so significant is this is not just a form factor where you can see holograms, et cetera. But it's actually, think about this as now, Windows is holographic. So as part of the Windows 10 release, everyone in the world will have access to the APIs to be able to interact and view holograms. All right? We will, like always, partner with hardware manufacturers, et cetera, to have the right kind of components so these things are capable. Right now, our HoloLens is the only thing that is capable of viewing these things. But as a platform, we're making this available to everybody in industry. So this is really different and I think fairly significant. So let's step back for a second. And this is where I want to start talking more about what our intentions are as a company and give you some context for the kinds of conversations that we've been having, not just as a design community, but as executive leadership as well. So to what ends are we building HoloLenses and what is now the Surface Hubs and Windows 10, et cetera? I hope to leave you with let's call it a design and philosophical backdrop for our intentions, which is a little bit of the why. If I'm good and I pull it off, you'll leave with a framework and some working concepts that I think might be relevant to the way that you want to think about working. And I'm going to also try to decompose what it means to build a platform to enable these great experiences and geek out a little bit on a few things, as geeky as I get, which is not really geeky. but on a high level, decompose it so that there are manageable concepts that maybe explain what's happening behind the scenes. So let's start with the fact that I don't think we, or myself standing up here, is that we have any more information and that we're not responding any differently from all of you in this room to all the business trends, technology trends, and user trends that are going on in the world. You know, we know our consumers no longer live a 9 to 5 and 5 to 9 life where you can call one person a consumer versus an information worker. They're living blended lives. We've always been humans. We've taken that note and are really starting to erase the notion of information workers as best we can because people are multitasking and are consumers and workers at the same time. We know we have access to so much more data today, yet they are so confused and overwhelmed with so much information coming to them. We also know that mobile devices, because of the consumerization of price points, et cetera, have moved into IT, or information technology, and we know we have to be where our customers are. Here's an example of experiences traveling independent of platform over to multiple platforms. This is the Office for iPad. At the end of the day, we have to respond to where our customers are, right? And the business, like all of you, has to respond to some of these basics. There's some awesome things that I referenced earlier, too. The design community for the past 5 years, I am proud to say, has really come together. Here's an example of a one event, we called it, where 900 of us got together. We drank together, but we shared our stories about designing for our new design language, what kind of patterns we're surfacing across company, who's doing what, from server and tools all the way to the Xbox division, et cetera. It really does feel like the community has come together on behalf of consumers and users to do the right thing to create seamless experiences. Awesome. We also have a design language, a look and feel, and a modern approach that we're proud of that has to keep evolving, right? We call it the Microsoft Design Principles, Microsoft Design Language, aka Metro at one point. We continue to make advancements here. Super proud of the visual design, motion, and aesthetics overall of the Microsoft experience. But we have a new leader as well with a different outlook. And what's really interesting about Satya is he is very comfortable using humanistic terms. And he insists that we actually exist as Microsoft, not just to build products that people need, but he uses terms like he wants people to love Microsoft. He wants people to love the products that we're building. And he insists that we all think about our businesses that way. And you can imagine his support for design because of that language and what we do is super high, right? Yet, I'm going to step back and say lots of good stuff going on. But what we are doing now, as we think about the next generation of what we're doing as a design community, but certainly I think as a collective, it seems like we're doing so much good stuff. All of you out there, the design community is delivering awesome hardware, software, and experiences. We're going to deliver new products like what I just mentioned. There's going to be another invention next week by some other company. Everything's going fine. But for some reason, we're so close to it, we can't seem to put our finger on it. But as good a job as everyone's doing, the more stuff we got, why does it feel like we're not making progress at the right level? There's something missing, and I think we know what it is, that we're so close to, we can taste it, right? The fact that, it's, this is a great image. This is when we had the term way back years, computer in every desk in every home. That's awesome, right? Look at this. We got like 5 computers in every desk, in every home and business, right? And now we've got mobile phones. Look what the mobile phones are doing, right? People have these things. We are so socially connected, yet never more lonely at times. So we all feel this. And what we are trying to do as Microsoft, but maybe with all of you, is let's elevate our language and get to what we actually understand to be the next step in how we take user-centered design to human-centered design. And it's a nuance, but a significant difference. So we think that next step is not something that we don't understand here already. We don't want to be designing technology to be more human-like, ultimately, right? We want to design technology that embraces the things that make us human. So we want to strive for experiences that people don't need, or that people don't just need, but they love. It seems like every positive advancement we make in technology seems to get us closer to actually letting us be simply who we are. You think about some of the things like simple advancements from a keyboard to touch, or keyboard and mouse to touch. Now we're going from touch to voice. These are all things that are getting closer and closer to things as simple as when we are 5 years old and we're learning to catch a ball in the air. There's some things, many things that we do that are simulated behavior. Let's be clear, not everything's natural, but some things are very natural, like catching a ball in the air as a 5-year-old, right? All these advancements we're making in technology seem to be, when they are working to people's benefits, it's just letting us be more human, right? So instead of having individuals and people conform to our technology, let's enable humans to do what they've always done. This, in a nutshell, is what I'm calling the Human Design Agenda, or initiative, that powers the more personal computing ecosystem that we're going to talk about, right? Getting people to be simply themselves, beautiful, glorious, imperfect selves, and embracing all aspects of that moving forward. So let's say you're with me for that, right? Steve, give me something to work with. I bite. Okay, so this is where I move into a little more of a platformy side and saying, well, how are we enabling these experiences, this rich environment that actually lets people be more themselves? There are two things that we think about overall, to get it simple, and it has to do with human and environmental understanding. Okay? I should mention, one of the key things that's enabling all of this behind us is that we have access to so many rich sensors today. Sensors that come down in cost, they're cameras, they're digitizers, all these things. You know, I don't have my phone with me. Phones are not just endpoints. They actually have the capability of telling us location. There's an accelerometer on it. You can actually, there's technology so I can tell, there's galvanic skin response, so we can tell if you're anxious. Whatever it may be, any input device or devices in the world are built of sensors. And these sensors help inform us in a very rich way to better predict, hopefully, the right state and the right kind of experiences that are appropriate at the time, right? So also, not to be lost, with things like the HoloLens and that large screen, display technology has been amazing. Sensors and display technologies enable this world of mobility like never before, and it's going to continue to be crazy, innovative, and enabling overall. So if I were to break down human understanding of what the goal is, right? It's, in the end, it's about creating a trusted relationship with technology. Sounds easy, harder to do, right? Overall, we need to enable a world where people naturally identify themselves, right, or ourselves overall, unlocking these unique experiences that not just help us get things done, but we have to understand the true motivations behind them. If I were to break them down, it's almost off the screen there, 3 simple things. I'm going to talk about trusted identity, multimodal natural interactions, and the last one is shifting from tasks and activities to this notion of motivations. Again, I don't think any of this stuff is new, but I'm going to try and talk about it in the context of how we're trying to approach it at a platform level. So let's talk about identity. First and foremost, with any relationship, if we don't have a trusted identity system that you can trust, you don't have a quality relationship. This may be one of the most important things to get right as a community, as a technology industry. So now with voice, vision, and other types of biometrics, right, we can create the world where hopefully, the only password you need is you. I don't know about you, but I've got way too many passwords on too many accounts. I shouldn't say this out loud, I am so worried that because I have to use the same password everywhere, if someone were to figure out what my secret code was, they'll unlock my whole life, right? This notion of putting pins in is such an old concept, right? We got to get to this place, and we have the technology to do this, where just yourself, whether it's a fingerprint ID, just the way you look, the way you speak, maybe in combination, done very passively, so it's not an intrusive experience that's totally creepy, can authenticate you at enterprise levels when you get into your machine, right? By creating that trusted experience that's very seamless, so you no longer have to keep all those things in your head or the index card inside the drawer that tells you what that password was, is the kinds of things we're talking about with more personal computing and human design, right? The other aspect of identity is we have to understand and architect our experiences to be able to understand the nuance and the dimensions of everyone's personalities. Internally, we call this a faceted identity. It's the notion that you're a mom, you are a wife, you might be a Seahawks fan, you love to cook, These are all different states and personalities, so to speak, that if we could understand with any level of trust for you, maybe we'd be presenting experiences slightly differently. Maybe not, don't know. But we have to appreciate the fact that human beings are so nuanced, and they do have multiple identities. We can't flatten everybody down to one email or one credential, right? Again, easier said than done. But this notion that we have to embrace a complex individual and understand people's identities along all those facets is something that we are trying desperately hard to do ourselves. Here's an example of Cortana. And this was shown at the demo a couple of days ago. What's not shown is that Cortana, with one click, you'll be able to get something called a notebook. The notebook is where Cortana shows everything that she knows about you. And this is where you can actually check for accuracy and delete some things. Or you can say, I don't want you knowing that about me, so therefore I'm deleting it anyway. Or you can add things in that you think actually define you a little bit better so that she, on your behalf, is smarter to be able to answer your questions, provide more proactive assistance, et cetera, in a richer way. Why is this so important? Well, without that, you don't have a trusted relationship. We think transparency equals trust. And with that trust, you're going to buy into the relationship. And when you have that relationship, we can move down the stack or up the stack, depending on how you think about it, and get to things like interactions that are very natural, as well as addressing the types of things that motivate you. So that's my last point on identity. I hinted at multimodal interaction. Let's get into this. This one may be more obvious. I don't know, or maybe as obvious. But again, just like identity, what if the only input device you had was you? It seems like we are moving faster and faster to that promise. Touchscreens, I would argue inking to a certain degree. Certainly voice. Voice is going to be a first-class input device on things like a HoloLens because it's the perfect place to do this, right? Technology is getting so sharp and good. But this is where we actually take advantage of all the senses and kinesics of body language, et cetera, to actually make you navigate this world like a human instead of adapting ourselves to machines with mice and keyboards, et cetera. This is where speech input just isn't for command and control. You know, we want to use our natural language, speak the way we want to speak so that we can actually interact with the system in a very humane way. These technologies also help us be smarter and better about accommodating the changes in our day and our capabilities for the moment. Notice I'm not using the word accessibility or disability. We all know that each of us is disabled at some level at different times of the day. The fact that we have sun in our eyes makes us disabled. You don't have to be permanently colorblind or blind or quadriplegic to be disabled. We are all disabled at one point or another. So we need to create adaptive user interfaces that can exploit the fact that we've got all these different input modalities that surface at the right time in the right place based on the understanding of your context, et cetera. And lastly, what if the goal was no UI, right? And here's a little nod. Wayback Machine. This is Steve, 1991, Mouse 2.0, right? And I bring this up because that image on the right side, which is a little hard to read, is basically summing up the fact that when we design things like input devices, we are measuring and working with grip architecture specialists who understand the biomechanics and the topology of hands, right? For command and control. We have force transducers on the sides of the mouse, so based on the icon size, we know if someone's pressing harder or less hard. Based on the goniometers on the wrists, we can tell if there's too much flexion in the experience overall, creating physiological effects in the wrist. All these things between hardware, software, physiology, biomechanics, etc. The whole goal was to make the mouse disappear. The goal is from thought to action to result, right? There's nothing in between. And so we've been doing this forever. Everybody here knows no UI is actually a good thing very often. Right? So this notion of transparency comes back, right? We should, anyway, I think it's an important point to leave us with. This notion of transparency is allowing us to actually interact more humanely overall. Last point on the human understanding component and continuum. Moving from a task-oriented language and activity-based one to really understanding motivations of humans at a higher level. We, like many of you, have ethnographers on team that go out into the real world and give us really deep insights The trick is translating those insights into real product strategy overall. But those insights are so rich with information that help us connect experiences at a different level. And so why is this so why is this so important? Here's a chart that I use with partner engineers, product planners, et cetera, to help describe what I'm just trying to talk about. We do a great job. We give ourselves high fives by saying, you know, we're going to align on personas across the company. Wow, right? We got target users. I take that as a good start. Where we're all designing for the same thing and same person. Okay, we have a profile. We have that big 4x8 board. We know what he or she's wearing, what kind of car they drive. Beautiful. Okay, so we're not designing for ourselves, but we're designing for other people. You guys get that. We then collect a lot of data, go out in the field, and say, wow, these are all the activities that people like to do. This is what makes them buy things. This is awesome. So we actually pool all these features together. Let's call those the tasks and activities that we collect data on to better understand what people are doing. Awesome, because we're not just designing for ourselves, but we're getting more feedback. And then from the bottom there, you see enabling technology and product solutions. Now we've got these products, legacy products, that we want to shoehorn in somehow so to make sure that they actually fit to those scenarios. So then we write these beautiful scenarios and storyboards that have people going through this customer journey. Wonderful. The problem we have, and you guys know it, right? Look at the gap between these things. I purposely created the stack this way, right? The things that we need to focus on and the way that we kind of break this down that becomes more sophisticated and arguably, to me, more credible, if we're going to talk about interaction design at the end of the day, is we need to understand use context. Use context could be both physical context, you could talk about physiological or human state as well as context. But understanding human context actually in many ways informs you about their psychological field or their higher level motivations. Do I want to escape from my day while watching TV because I just had the TV is my escape from my responsibilities of life? Or do I really want to interact with a super complex remote control that feels like a computer on my interactive TV, right? Case in point, interactive TV hasn't necessarily taken off the way we expected. Some of the psychological fields and the theory behind that, this is a social space. People come and have this large screen. They actually want to chill. They want a remote control that looks as simple as this. 2 buttons so I don't have to think because my job is to veg right now. I don't want to interact with my TV, right? That's maybe a case in point. Maybe it resonates with some of you, maybe it not. But that gives you a sense. Without understanding physical context and its effect on psychological motivations, you can't tell me we can design the right interaction model, whether it's passive, active, or interactive, at the bottom level of this stack. So that's why motivations are so important, right? To understand and inform ourselves of what's the optimum and appropriate level of solution that we're looking for. The little secret is, across the company, as big as Microsoft, you can imagine how hard it is to actually align experiences. Where many of us focus is in that top band. I think you can use this today in your company, small or big, it doesn't matter. But it's this area that is so hard to align on, and this is where I'm convinced, where you start to align, and when you talk about human flow, where people stay in their own state that they want to be in and move between experiences, but have that same sense of being in a zone, you define human flow in those areas. Again, without going too far, this is still a work in progress. We're not perfect, but I'm convinced this stack is going to be useful, and it has been useful for us. All right, so that's on motivations. Last topic, a couple of things. First one's pretty obvious, I think, but we'll talk about now environmental understanding. Ultimately here, what's the goal? We want to actually have contextual awareness, right? And contextual empathy for where the experience is happening. The first point is proximity and location, which are different things, but I'm going to stack them together because they really feel like they can be bundled because they're pretty straightforward. And I'll spend a little bit of time on world capture because that's what HoloLens in particular is doing really unique. Phones, devices, we all get GPS, location. This is all great information. Time is also very useful for us to better understand potentially what you may be doing, what context you're in. But as for example, that PPI display, when I mentioned the sensors on it, like the cameras, like the fact that it had speakers, microphones on it, et cetera, when you walk into the room from a distance, the PPI will actually wake, right? You go from a low-powered ambient state to when it wakes up. And that's a small example of how behavior can change when you're actually aware of the context, right? It is also capable of understanding, when it's an 84-inch display, if you're on the right side or the left side. We may surface the UI differently, depending on knowing which side of the room you're at. If you're 2 feet away, 1 foot away, or 10 feet away, should our UI change? Should it scale? Should the font be different? Should we be surfacing different information at different levels, right? These are all questions and challenges and opportunities for us as designers, but know that the sensors are capable of understanding that with accuracy. It knows it has 5 people in the room. It will know who the people are. It can actually directionally know who's speaking, right? The sensors and the technology is all capable. It's on us as designers to make sense of it all now, right? Not over-design or under-design for that situation. I'll go even farther. Imagine, and this is some technology that's already available in our research team. Imagine just based on the semantics of space and room, meaning the visual cues of a kitchen versus a living room versus, I'll call it a bathroom, right? That if you were able to, and you're wearing, let's say, a HoloLens or something like this, or your device had that capability to understand these things, we were able to actually diagnose and understand that you were in a kitchen. And it doesn't have to be your kitchen, it could be any kitchen. Would you start to design experiences differently? Right? We do have the capability with a certain level of prediction, accuracy, to actually better understand the semantics of space as well. That's location as well, right? How does that change the way we think about designing experiences? Okay, lastly, and this is kind of making me make the transition over to now some of the magic in the HoloLens, which we really hope the world picks up overall. I'm calling world capture. I don't think we have the official term for it. There's probably one, I may have missed it. But here's an example. You saw this in the video. What we're able to do is actually scan the topology of the space, right? You know, as we think about the context for human design, we're all here, we're seeing in 3D. Last I checked, we live in 3D, we dream in 3D. It's high time that we'll actually let our customers and users live life in 3D, right? And experience digital technology as we would think in our three-dimensional worlds, right? So what does capturing these environments do? As you saw, this is an obvious one. Playing a game on a coffee table, your software is aware that the coffee table is there, right? Something worth noting, which might get lost in all of this, when we talk about Windows holographic, it's more than Princess Leia on this pedestal, right? But this is not just a viewer where you have a three-dimensional model that you can walk around. These are interactive applications, right? Not much different from the fact that if you have a Windows phone, we have something called a live tile, right? A live tile is your weather that's constantly getting updated. It's connected to the cloud. It's personalized to you. And that start menu has all your favorite applications. They're all getting updated and on time so that it's a very personalized experience. What you can do now, and we have an image coming up, is create a live cube. So in a live cube, that weather application turned into something that you can see rain falling, right? You can walk around this cube and experience things from different dimensions. You can interact with it because it is an application. Imagine creating a music application in 3 dimensions, right? And they're all capable of understanding the physical space. So we can actually pin it onto a chair, onto a wall, onto the carpet, or whatever it may be. So when you log on and you come back to your space, the persistence is there. This is leaving things in your virtual world very personal to you in the places you want it. But think about this as more than just viewing. These are interactive applications that you can put into the 3D world. Hopefully you get the significance of that. We'll talk a little bit. Here's a Skype call. Again, some of the other things that you can do. Imagine being able to, I've got a daughter who's going to go to college. She may live in an apartment for the first time. She might have to fix a sink. I don't know. If she has one of these on, I, from Redmond, can, on my surface, see what she is seeing. I would say, hey, Maya, look at this area. This is where your leak is. I circle it. She can see it real time on the faucet itself, right? And she's seeing me because I'm pinned to the wall as a Skype call. We have this working. The analysts and all the press saw this working 2 days ago. It is really amazing. And again, it is just the tip of the iceberg. But imagine what you can do is why I'm here. Imagine when things get even further, right? And this is not far-fetched at all. When we can do more complicated things. Imagine a surgeon not having to pick up a scalpel and learn a routine. Or being able to get coached on something half a world away because that individual on the other side is capable of seeing and interacting with, I won't call it human body or the guts of human, that sounds gross, but something like that, right? Okay. So, in closing, talked about a couple of new devices. Super proud. I think they're amazing. So far, the feedback's been awesome. I did want to level up and just say, you know, at the end of the day, it is not just about building more devices. We are aspiring to actually further technology to not just be cool gadgets, but actually further the way that we interact as humans overall. And as we think about that, the goal has always been to let people simply be themselves, right? And that's kind of the point about human design and what we consider more personal computing. You know, collectively, I think we could agree that the return on investment on technology is still way too high. The friction in the system of interacting and learning new things amongst all of us is still way too high. And so this is bigger than my little group, Microsoft. This is all of us, right? To actually think about human conditions, think about motivations, and working together to actually align patterns, think about holistic experiences together, is kind of what our customers want. They don't care about our competing business models, et cetera. I've extended that language, by the way, because that's how we've been thinking about it internally. We have a big company with a lot of different business units. But we've had to overcome the fact that we have these different P&Ls with the idea that our customers don't care, right? The larger order and calling maybe for all of us, which seems really altruistic, is, man, we should be working together, right? These new technologies are yours. Let's go use it. Give us some feedback, right? This is something that we want to learn with you on. Because our goal, again, is to further the human condition overall. So, 2 things I'll leave you with, right? I think we're going to have to learn some new tricks. If you're a UI, UX designer, this 3D thing is kind of real. It's kind of different. You might have to start working in some 3-dimensional modeling tools to better understand how interactions work, right? I won't get into the development platform. I'm not ready to do that yet, but it's pretty obvious. I think your world has opened up immensely. Right? These experiences are going to be different overall. If you're an industrial designer, any IDs here? Yeah, all right. A couple IDs, awesome. If you don't think that this has changed the industrial design profession, oh my gosh. To be able to see this motorcycle, by the way, and we have this working too, you're able to take a CAD 3D model, right? And because we're able to quantify this space, I could change the flaring on that motorcycle with 3 different models. And my client could be on the other side of the world. And we are walking around this 3-dimensional model and leaving Skype notes on it, right? You can actually build a printer and see it at scale before you see and see it or anything else, right? So for IDs, not only is the viewing and design process going to change, but think about 3-dimensional objects that actually are applications and behave. You can be behavioral designers too, not just, don't leave that up to the UX people. Basically, hardware objects that are virtual are can be interacted with as well. They become 3-dimensional applications. So I believe UX, maybe the broader term, UI, UX, and ID all meet in this space. A funny note is I don't know what happens. You know, it's easy to talk with our design language. We use the term authentically digital, and we have Swiss design philosophy, et cetera. So we take all the gradient and skeuomorphism out of our design language, right? Success, it's all great. When we think about 3-dimensional environments, mixed reality, what is authentic anymore? Is skeuomorphism back? Or, you know, I don't know. It kind of blew my world, and we're still trying to figure it out, frankly. But there's such fundamental questions that we're confronted with, and I love it. We don't have all the answers. It's so new, but this is going to be a fun ride altogether. So, lastly, hopefully you get this. Not science fiction. This is science fact. This is all happening this year. We're not saying when, but it's happening this year. And with Windows 10, again, every Windows 10 device will have these kinds of capabilities. So get ready. I think it's going to be a fun ride. If you want and you're interested, the best place to follow up and stay tuned with us is go to the corporate website, Microsoft.com. We have developer engagement schedules on that. There's a build conference coming up in April in San Francisco where we're going to unveil the next level of detail about how to develop these experiences. I think we'll have some design sessions. If I know we'll have some design sessions there with some human interface guidelines to help you navigate this world, literally, figuratively, all the above. So with that, thank you. And I don't know if we have any time, but I'll take questions if we do. Yep. Any questions? Yes.
Steve, the military has experienced challenges combining simulated assets in a training environment with real ones. So you have real fighter planes conducting exercise, and then you have guys in simulators that are involved in that same exercise, and bringing those two worlds together has some safety considerations. I was wondering, did you guys identify a safety consideration?
What type of challenges were you? What type of safety?
Perceiving, so potential midair.
By the way, answer your question. I probably won't get into it, but yeah.
Potential midair collision scenarios where there's a chance that you lose track of who's real, who's live, and who's simulated.
Yeah.
So that pilots lose situation awareness, thinking that that group is simulated when they're actually live, and vice versa. Have you guys identified any safety challenges in the HoloLens?
There are always challenges. This is a whole different medium, right? There are issues of, how far we render the holographic images, and adjusting and calibrating the unit so that it's appropriate to the eyes and all these other things are part of the experience overall. But I can't get into any specifics. But I could say no, not that I'm aware of, that we've gone that far. And again, we're not dealing with currently life and death scenarios like the one you're mentioning, right? We're trying to put a game on top of a table. We're rendering a guy on top, I think we had Blitz as a holographic image, et cetera. So we are at that phase of the process, but I do think some of these hard questions are right around the corner. Yeah. Yes? Oh, I've been there. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'll have to repeat the question because I've been asked to do that. So, sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Kind of keeping it in a closed Windows world. It
Yeah.
sounds like something that everyone would want to use, but then
Yeah, I'll tackle the second one. First of all, I'm not going to get into and can't get into the developer ecosystem and how we engage, but it is our intention to be as inclusive as possible. I can say that, right? And that Windows world is getting bigger and bigger, which is why we're actually putting so much effort into the UAP, Universal App Platform overall, so that the developer ecosystem has a better value proposition of writing once and playing as much as possible across all endpoints, right? Not 100% leverageable, but a much easier value proposition for them. Your first question of, it seems Microsoft is always kind of late to the game, I think is what I heard. Yeah, I guess that was true. I'm part of the Zone. I've been all of the same. Yeah. Yeah. If I were to answer that question just point blank, I actually think the HoloLens and the Surface Hub are the first of their kind, and no one's come close yet, right? Meaning, yes. Yep. This one is, I think, going to be different, but you're going to have to trust me on that because we're in the middle of this process, right? But we are all in. This is an experience that's happening now. It will be available for users to use. Whether products are too early for the market is a totally different question. You know, in order to make advancements in the way that we're trying to talk about, we can't wait for the market to catch up or wait for technology to mature. That supercomputer I was talking about has never been done before, right? What I am proud of is that the company is willing to invest and stick with things more than we have in the past. So when and if we come out early, and it's too early, I believe we have the conviction to stay with something so that we will continue to get it better and better instead of quitting on the business, which is a totally different thing. But we can't be afraid about pioneering new categories. And as part of a company portfolio, we'll always have products that are laggards, and their job is to continue to be super robust and predictable and familiar to everybody. But we always need other products to actually go and push technology further. So the fact that we're such a large company and can diversify our portfolio means we don't have to play just one business model at a time, but we can have them all going at the same time. Right? Yes, question?
With the Oculus Rift, it's very easy to get vertigo. Do you have vertigo issues with the HoloLens?
We're actually doing very well. And again, I don't want to get super far into this thing, but I can tell you that we had 200 press event people come through, no issues. It's something that the reason why it takes 4 years to build something like this is serious science. And we have some of the world's best serious scientists on this project. And I can tell you, I get motion sickness. I don't feel it. But again, this is still something, it's a new technology. As things mature, we're going to learn some new things. But that's one of the things that anyone involved in VR and or AR are aware of. Yeah. Yes?
Are you doing anything with, basically, you showed somebody sort of reaching out and touching something,
yes.
But they weren't really touching it, but like actually interacting in other modalities besides looking at it. So, grabbing something lightly, grabbing something, hard, anything like that.
Interactions we are still working on. They are in the works and working, but not ones we're actually demoing right now. Right now it's a basic gaze with selection and voice, right, is all we're really talking about. But in order to interact in this world, you have to be able to pick things up, move them. You bet, right. So those are all interactions in progress that we have working, but, we're still tuning too. Any other questions? Okay, have a great lunch. Thanks for your attention.